Howdy, howdy. Welcome to Straight Up Cooking. This is Bruce Sarton, and today we're going to be working on mixing together some seasonings and different components to make a dry rub. Dry rubs are going to be things that you'll hence dry prior to cooking. Dry rub, which is a way of moving with the hands, and dry and put it into the meat, the ribs, the pork, sometimes poultry underneath the skin of turkeys. Anyway, but the dry rub is what we're doing today. You'll see that we've got these on. We're in Panama City Beach, Florida. There is the Gulf Coast Jam occurring as we speak, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of fun there as well as cook. So today, that's why we're wearing these bracelets. Different things mean different things, and we just can't take them off because then we're in trouble. So we got to keep them on. Bear with us. Today, we're going to talk about a lot of different things about the rub itself. I like, if you can't make it yourself, there's great ones out there. You can buy, you can try them, but I choose to make them. Grub Rub is a great one that comes real close to this. If you're in a hurry and you ever got to really go to the store, if you find Grub Rub, it's a great one. But this is very similar. So what we use is we use a brown sugar, which has got a lot of moisture in it. If you've ever been around brown sugar, you can form it. You can see how unbelievably it sits upside down, while this one is just white granulated sugar that will compact nicely, but it will not stand up like this. So we're going to talk about how to get that way and how to measure properly by doing it that way. So first and foremost, the three components of brown sugar, granulated sugar, and paprika. Paprika is the key to working with these other two larger volume components when it breaks down over time, whether you do it heavier paprika and you do it quickly versus refrigeration, which I'll show you what we're doing with the steaks at the end. But the fact is these three are the most important, so always try to work with the multiplication of these three by 1/8 of a cup by 1 and 1. So if you use 1 and 1, basically 1 cup of this, 1 cup of that, you can use that as your common denominator on whether you're doing large briskets and you need more. Rub total amounts so you can spend, like for instance, 30, 40, 60 pounds if you're at a cook-off. But here today, this is enough to do probably 2 10-pound briskets. So, and store it, keep it for time, for up to a month. So what will happen is when you add the three most important is that I like to keep the dry away from the brown sugar. I like to let all the dry components, which would be paprika, some of these seasonings we'll come in here in a minute with, but I like to keep them all together dry without the moisture, and it'll clump up on you. Sometimes humidity will do it. Here at the beach, we've opened up the door a few times and the breeze, beautiful view, but it comes in and it can clump up and cause so many different things to occur to the brown sugar after you put it in. So we're going to leave it out again. All right. The paprika comes, this is actually, I would say this is almost 3/4 of a cup. So when you're looking for an 1/8, you can use measuring devices. For me, the paprika really is something that it's about spreading the volume for the amount that you see of the white pure cane. So for me, if you've got too much in your hand and you start to use it a lot, you'll tell when you drop it that paprika on the white. And I just go by feel. I don't think you can mess up unless you just don't use it at all or barely use a pinch. So what I do is I keep that together this way in order for it to mix nicely. And you'll see how fast it turns into mixing perfectly with the white. There's no streaking. Starts out to streak slightly, but when you finally get it mixed up, it'll almost look like cinnamon. I mean, the prettiest. There's no way for that not to be mixed properly because we're missing that moisture. So when you have the paprika and the granulated sugar together, 1 cup of the granulated and 1/8 of the paprika, when you have that together, then I like to take some of the components together, so it's just a memory thing. I like to work with it just so I can remember which ones are always working together. So if in 3 months in time, I know that I can go back and I can remember more or less that the larger tablespoons of this was always these 3. It's easier to do that. Now today we got the internet, you can back up, look on the internet, confirm things. But right now, tablespoons is what you go from. A cup, you start working tablespoons. So tablespoon of the garlic powder is something that you don't have to have the fine powder. You can go granulated. The granulated, there's nothing wrong with that. When you use granulated, what you're doing is you're just letting more of that, it has consistency more of the sugar. So when you're rubbing that in, the granules will do a little bit better job. For me, we have enough sugar here on the amount that we're using, and I use powder for just to get the spice seasoning in. There's your onion powder, which would be another tablespoon. And then when you get into cumin, it's more of a pinch deal. It's not like dropping it in your hand because we're talking teaspoons. For me, I use 1, maybe 1.5 of cumin, and celery salt. Celery salt's 1, 1.5. I treat it like almost like a little cumin scenario. Same amount. And then when you get into peppers, peppers are nothing more than just what you prefer. As you cook, spices cook down. So don't overestimate the spiciness because it will cook down. So for me, I'm a real big red pepper guy on rub because I do know that all the collagens will work together with that heat and it will come down in the refrigerator the way I choose to do 24 hours, 48 hours of fermentation time, I guess, for lack of a better term. So I double up on my pepper more. Like I said, always an option, and whatever you think you like, there it is. All these dry components, all we have to do is, again, mix the dry together. The dry will blend nicely. I don't use a lot of machinery to do chopping and blending. I think it takes away from the fun of cooking. So I like to use smart thinking and make sure that you don't mix oil and water per se, right? All right. That is perfect mix. So now when we come to the end of it, what we'll do is we'll put in the more moisture stuff, which is there's only one component that has more moisture than everything we're using today, brown sugar. When you chop up the brown sugar, it should start to, I wouldn't get to mixing it. If you start mixing the moisture in the dry, you're gonna have to really bust up small clumps. So I bust it up before I get to mixing. I get all of it as busted up as much as I can. And then that way, if in fact you run into some clumps, they're actually, you're able just to pat them out. Just barely touch them and they'll pat right out because they're not very large. You see what I'm talking about. You'll see a clump gather and it just pats out. So as long as it pats out, it'll pat out when you're rubbing the steak. You don't want to be rubbing something and you didn't do this proper mixture, and then when you break down whatever that little marble size material is, all of a sudden there's nothing but paprika coming out. You don't need that. So consistency is the key. So that's what we have. That's a colorization kind of oven. Consistency, very well blended. Nothing really clumping hardly at all. You grab it like this, it just comes, it's like sand. That's what we have, and what we do is we take steak, rib, it could be pork ribs, baby backs, long ribs beef, briskets, anything in the form of a beef that has some fat on it. Chicken, you have to change up chicken a little bit because chicken doesn't have as much that fat that beef has. So with beef, if you rub it in, I prefer to put it in a plastic non-scented bag and wrap it up airtight. I take the air out of it, squeeze the air out of it, and I wrap it up tight. I've got 2 steaks in here that have been previously rubbed, and they've been wrapped. And I'm going to show you now what that looks like after a couple hours. Now, for me, it's as simple as just shut the air out and just set it on itself. You don't have to get involved in tire wraps, and just make sure it's a non-scented bag. Grocery bags very much are easy to use unless you have a big brisket. Then you get into the garbage bags, and you want to make sure the color doesn't matter. Clear is always great because someone can see it. You start to smell it when it comes out of the refrigerator the next day. These steaks here have only had an hour or 2, and they've already started to caramelize a little bit through the sweating and through us rubbing them previously. So you can imagine what will happen overnight. So that's the way we grub rub. That's the way we do what we do with our rub. And I hope you enjoyed the show. Visit us on Facebook. If you like us, give us a thumbs up. Thank you.